Welcome to Millwood Outdoors. I'm Jeff, and thanks for watching today. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a 5-year review of my Stihl BR700 backpack blower. I'll go through how I start it, how I put it on my back, some of the controls, and then we'll go up to the cabin and we'll do a leaf cleanup, and I'll talk more about how I use the blower throughout the year for yard cleanup, and how it works for blowing leaves. And we'll talk about what I like and don't like about it. So let's get going. So let me show you some of the controls. We've got the fuel cap here. So this fuel cap is tethered, although I have had some trouble with this tether becoming disconnected. And that's just something new that's happened this year. I got it back on and it's still on for now, but I suspect at some point it will come off again. The recoil, obviously. This is the little fuel bulb and the choke. And then we have all of our straps. So the trigger, you squeeze that to increase the RPM. This switch here, it's momentary down, and that shuts it off. And if you don't want to hold the trigger the whole time, you can raise that lever up, and that'll lock the trigger in the wide open position. I personally don't use it because this blows so much air that I need to be able to release the trigger on occasion, because otherwise I'll be blowing landscape rock or mulch out of a bed, or if I'm around the garage and I forget to shut the garage door, I'll be blowing leaves in the garage. There's just times when you really just need to idle this down. It just produces too much air. So that's why I don't really use the cruise control on it. But I imagine if you were running it all day, you know, if you worked for a lawn service and you were blowing leaves all day long, that would probably be a welcome relief. These straps, you know, the waist strap just locks in here. Pretty simple, really. One area that I think Stihl could improve upon is, let's see if I can get the camera closer, is this chest strap. So the chest strap didn't come with it. I bought it. I bought the chest strap just because I thought, well, I'm a little bigger guy. I'm kind of barrel chested. I just sort of thought everything, if I had an extra strap on there, it wouldn't be a bad thing. So the way this buckle works, if you can see it, so there's these slots cut in it, and I guess you have to have that there so you can thread the shoulder strap into this buckle. But what happens is, and so I took this one off, and this one is partially coming off, and that's what happens. It works its way out of the buckle. And so what I've had to do is I've got some really wide electrical tape, and then I put electrical tape over these strap buckles when I get it put on, and that works. It's, you know, it's not a very elegant solution, but it gets the job done. On occasion I still have to take this apart and I have to redo it, you know, maybe once a season. But what I'd like to see is I'd like to see a chest strap that was as wide as this waist strap, and with a nice big buckle on it. I think that might, and if they could somehow, if you could somehow remove this strap enough that you could thread it on there with a buckle that didn't have these holes in it, I think that would help. So that's kind of an orientation. Oh, one more thing I forgot. So this one, the tube goes in and out. So if you loosen that up, that tube will go in. I only ever put the tube in when I'm trying to store it, when I'm putting it away for storage. Otherwise, I leave it out all the time when I'm using it. So that's kind of a look at the leaf blower and all the little controls and the straps and everything. So let me go through how I started. I started on the ground. That way I can lean down, put my hand on this handle, and I can steady it when I try to pull it over. So I make sure it's full of fuel, and then this isn't a primer bulb. I think it fills the carburetor up with fuel and maybe cycles fuel back through to the tank or something. I'm not 100% sure what it does, but I push that in about 6 times. And then I choke it, turn that all the way clockwise, and then I pull it until it starts. And that's how I start it. And then from there, I put it on and go to work. Let me show you how I put this on. So this weighs, I think it's 23 pounds, and so it's a little on the bulky side. It's a big unit, which if you want something that's going to move a lot of leaves, it's going to be a big unit, whether it's a Husqvarna or an Echo or a Stihl. I can put it on from the ground. I prefer to put it on, setting it on something that's a little bit closer to my shoulder height. And for here at home, it's this storage container. So I'm going to get into the shoulder straps and then buckle the waist belt, and then put the chest strap on. So here we go. And so there we go. I'm all set. So from here, let's go up to the cabin and I'll show you how I use it for a leaf cleanup. And then we'll talk about a little bit about how I use it for other things and what my thoughts are on the Stihl BR700 backpack blower. So I would say today we have, ideal conditions here for blowing leaves. The leaves are dry. We have a lot of maple trees up there. Those maple leaves, when they dry and fall to the ground, they tend to curl up, so they're nice and fluffy. So it's easy for the leaf blower to blow them. But if they were wet and matted down, it really wouldn't matter. That BR700, it would blow them anyway. Maybe you'd leave a little more effort, but I'd still be able to do this leaf cleanup either way, whether they're wet or dry. So I'm starting to do the leaf cleanup on the backyard, and I guess I should have walked around the backyard with the camera first before I started, so you could get an idea of how thick the leaves were. But I'd say in general they were probably 3 to 6 inches deep, depending on where you were. And it covered most of the backyard. And so as I'm blowing leaves here, you can see that it's doing a pretty good job of cleaning everything up. Over the years, I think I've tried about every method of cleaning up leaves that I can think of. I know I've raked them onto a tarp before, and that works okay. You can move a lot of leaves if you get them on a tarp, but you got to rake them up on there, and sometimes the tarp tends to get caught in the rake, and that makes it difficult. And you got to take them somewhere, and you got to do something with them. Um, I've had a bagging unit or a vacuum unit that is pulled behind the tractor. I didn't really care for that. It was kind of cumbersome, being on a trailer. If you're getting into a tight area, and you need to do some trimming. So And when you're using a rake, you're really limited by where the teeth can get into. So you can see here, I'm doing the area around the fire pit, and that backpack blower is moving all the leaves away from the rock wall, around objects. As I'm doing this, you'll see that I really don't have to move any of the furniture or any of the firewood. It's cleaning all the leaves off from around all those objects, and so it just cuts down on the time tremendously. And again, here I am up in the fire pit area, and you can see it's blowing that the area around the bricks, around the fire pit, around these chairs. It's blowing all of that just completely clean, and I really don't need to move any of the furniture. That is such a time saver. When I bought this machine, it probably took me, I don't know, it might have taken me a couple years to really understand everything that it's capable of doing. It's it really in most cases replaces a hand rake. Anything you can do with a hand rake, you can do with a leaf blower. The only thing I've found that maybe it doesn't work quite as good is I've got an elm tree in the backyard. It's older, and it drops sticks a lot during the summer. And I went out there with a backpack blower and tried to blow these sticks in a pile, and it does it. The only thing is the sticks, they're round. They're pretty aerodynamic, I suppose. So there's nothing for the air to really latch onto and get it going. And then if part of the stick is lodged under the grass, it tends to flop back and forth, and you just can't get them moved. And so rather than strap this backpack blower on and make sure it's fueled up and deal with the noise, I just go out with a hand rake and I rake sticks up. That seems to work just as best in that case. But in all other cases where I would use a rake, I would prefer to use this backpack blower. I purchased this Stihl BR700 backpack blower in November of 2020, so just about 5 years ago. At the time when I went out looking for a blower, I knew I wanted something with high airflow and velocity. I wanted something with a backpack design. I wanted something with the throttle on the blower tube handle. So some of the units, some of the makes, and I don't recall which ones those were, but they had a separate stalk on the left-hand side, and the throttle was on the left-hand side. And I thought it would be better to have the blower tube, the handle, and the throttle trigger all in one hand, and then that would leave my left hand freed up to pick up a stick or move some tree branches or whatever. So, and then the other thing is dealer support. Being able to get parts for it when I need to get something. And so I settled on Stihl, and I have a good Stihl dealer nearby. It's Kits and File Power Center in Oshkosh. Uh, they've always dealt fairly with me. They have a good selection of parts. They always seem to have a lot of parts in stock when I need it, and they've treated me fairly over the years. And then something else that I like is they're open till 6 p.m. at night during the week, so I don't have to leave work real early. I can get over there before they close. So that's why I settled on Stihl. Once I determined that I was going to go with Stihl, then it was a matter of determining what size I wanted. I guess because of the recommendation from the local lawn service, the guy that I talked to, I settled on the 700. I didn't want to go down to the 600. The 700 has 912 CFM. The BR600 only has 677. Although the 600 has more air velocity, so 238 miles per hour for the BR600 and only 197 miles per hour for the BR700. I thought the airflow maybe was more important, and again, you know, I got a good recommendation for that model from the guy that owned the lawn service, so that's what I settled on. The BR800, it was more money. I guess that was another reason why I steered away from it. One of the models had a start where you can start the blower from the left-hand side, so you can pull a rope on the left and you can start it when it's on your back. And I didn't really feel like I needed that feature either. So they do make an 800 without that, but again, I felt like I didn't want to, like maybe I didn't need to spend the money, and the 700 would do the job. There isn't a whole lot of technique to this. Obviously, you want to try to get the wind in your favor. You don't want to be blowing these against the wind. What I found is, as you look, you can see these leaves are starting to get kind of windrowed up. The pile's getting thick. And so what works best is if you can start, as you're waving the air tube or the blower tube back and forth, to kind of start on the top of the pile. So you're blowing, the blower tube is pointed more horizontal. And so you kind of start at the top of the pile, and then you work your way down. What I found is if I continually work off the bottom of the pile, and I've got the blower tube aimed at the bottom, eventually that pile gets so thick that the leaves kind of go up in the air and they roll backwards on themselves. And so you end up either not blowing them, or you're just not being as efficient. And so a few of the times in here, I'll actually blow from the bottom of the pile, just kind of for the sake of the video, just to show what happens when you do that. But again, works best if you blow off the top of the pile first and then work your way down to the bottom. So this leaf blower, this backpack blower, it's one of those tools, and I don't know if you've ever had a tool like this, but where I think the first year, maybe even the second, it's like every time I'd use it, I just kind of had this smile on my face, because it cuts down on the time so much, and it's almost amazing what kind of work you can get done with it. Of course, I've had it for 5 years, so I guess the novelty of it's wore off a bit now, but I don't know what I would do without it, honestly. Oh, earlier I mentioned this technique of blowing leaves starting at the top of the pile and working your way down, and that if you continually work off the bottom of the pile, the leaves tend to pop up in the air and they tend to roll back towards you a little bit. And then I also mentioned that if the leaves were wet and slimy, I'd still be able to blow them. It just would take a little more effort. So now if you take those wet, slimy leaves and maybe you got the wind blowing against you a little bit, and it blows those wet leaves up in the air, and they start to roll back, they'll end up down your neck. So I learned that a long time ago. So like I said, it blows wet leaves. Just got to be careful what direction you blow them in, or you're going to end up making a mess of yourself. So what you see here is, I was just curious how tall the pile was, so I grabbed a yardstick out of the garage and jammed it into the leaf pile, and it's about 28 inches there. And I'm probably 2/3 of the way, 2/3, 3/4 of the way done. So you can see beyond that, there's still some more leaves yet that are going to end up in this pile before they ultimately get blew into the woods. And you can see it's still moving leaves at a pretty good clip, even with the piles that big. So as you can see, those leaves are pretty much getting all blown back in the woods. The lawn looks relatively clean, and it all went pretty quick. So our driveway to the cabin is about 400 feet from the garage all the way out to the road. There's kind of a loop about halfway up, so there's probably about 600 feet of driveway in total. As you can see, the leaves are covering the driveway to the point where you can't see the gravel. We live in the snow belt up here, so what I don't want to have happen is I don't want it to rain and freeze and then have a frozen mat of leaves on the driveway. And then you get snow on top of that, and then I'm trying to blow that driveway with that little 185 and a single stage blower. Which actually works pretty well. It worked better than I expected, but if there's a bunch of frozen leaves underneath, those are probably going to get caught in the blower somehow and just make everything difficult. So I'm trying to keep this driveway clean. So one of the things I learned from watching some lawn service videos is guys that have stand-on mowers at times will take these backpack blowers, put them on their back, jump on the stand-on mower, and then they'll blow off some sidewalks or some driveways or whatever. So I thought I'd give this a try. This is the first time I've ever done this. It worked kind of okay. I wouldn't want a seat back that was any higher than what that one was, or that just flat out wouldn't work. But the seat back is low enough that it does. The only problem with this is it would work better if I had a foot pedal hydrostatic. That 185 has a hydro lever on the right fender, and between trying to run the hydro and then running holding the air tube and squeezing the throttle on the air tube, there's just a lot going on there with one hand. So, but hey, it was a lot quicker than walking it and using a rake. So I totaled up the raw video time, and it came to about 45 minutes. That seems a little low. I'm pretty sure I had the camera running almost the whole time I was doing it, but I probably had a little bit of time to set up and gas up the blower and kind of get things lined up. So let's just say I spent an hour and a half on it, doing the backyard and then doing the driveway. If I had to do that without a backpack blower, if I was doing that by hand, I would easily spend an entire day on it. I'm sure, and potentially into part of the second. So, what are the pros and cons? Well, the airspeed and air volume, that's definitely the plus. Without question. Without that, then you're just not going to get as much work done with it. It is a little on the heavy side, and it's a little cumbersome, a little unwieldy to put on. But you're going to have that. It's a compromise, right? So if you want something that has a lot of speed and power, then you're going to have to get a bigger machine that's going to be a little heavier and a little harder to strap on your back. Now, they make backpack blowers that are smaller, but I use this primarily for moving leaves, so I want something that's bigger. They make like a BR700, for instance. I've never ran it, but if I were, let's just say I had a lawn service and I was just blowing grass off driveways or sidewalks, then the smaller leaf blower I'm sure would be fine. The straps are an area that I think Stihl could use some improvement. You may have noticed in the video at times that those straps kind of work off my shoulders, and so they're sort of off my shoulders. And I just kind of let it go, and I just kind of keep getting the work done. So there's two shoulder straps, and then there's another belt that goes around my waist. I think as I recall, the BR700 had a chest strap that went with it when I bought mine. The BR700 did not. And so I chose to buy that chest strap to go with it. And so I put that on. The chest strap seems undersized to me. I think that it's like 1 inch wide, and it could be 2 inches wide. I would think that the chest strap could be as big as the belt that goes around the bottom. Like a 2 inch wide strap would be great. And then the other thing is this chest strap. The buckles are kind of weird. That allows you to attach it to the shoulder straps. They're kind of open, and so eventually that chest strap will work its way off the shoulder straps. So what I've had to do is put some electrical tape around those joints where the chest strap meets the shoulder strap. That's the only way I can keep it on for any long period of time. But I mean, overall, I've made it work, and I certainly wouldn't want to to go back without a backpack blower. So even with those areas that are areas where Stihl could, I think, make some improvements, I still love the machine and wouldn't want to be without it. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video today. I'm very happy that I have this leaf blower. It really has changed, radically changed how I take care of leaves in the fall. And without it, there would be an awful lot of raking and an awful lot of handwork. This has saved me a ton of time. So if you're on the fence, if you're considering buying a backpack blower, even if it's not a Stihl, if it's an Echo or a Husqvarna, you're looking at a bigger blower for blowing leaves, I definitely recommend getting it. You will not be unhappy, for sure. I know it has saved me an immense amount of time over the last 5 years. So if you like this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and spend some time outdoors.